Every night, like clockwork, I heard a soft tapping sound coming from the ceiling above my bed. It always started at exactly 11 a.m., never a minute sooner or later. At first, I didn't think much of it. It could have been old pipes, maybe, a squirrel on the roof, or just the creaking of an aging house settling. But it didn't go away. In fact, it became more frequent, deliberate, and almost ... thoughtful. The tapping would come in slow, measured beats, sometimes followed by complete silence, and then a flurry of rapid scratching, as if something was trying to claw its way in or out. I would lie there frozen, staring at the ceiling in the dark, my heart thudding louder than the noise itself. After 3 nights, I decided to record the sound with my phone. When I played it back the next morning, my stomach turned. It wasn't just tapping. Between the faint thuds, I could hear something else: murmurs, low, breathy whispers that didn't belong to me. I ran the audio through a filter on my laptop to isolate the background noise, and what I heard made my skin crawl. The voice was faint but unmistakable. It was whispering my name, over and over again. The sound of my own name repeated softly in a tone that felt wrong, unnatural, as if someone was mocking me by imitating the way I said it to myself. By the 5th night, the tapping had changed. It no longer stayed confined to a single spot. It moved. I could follow the sound as it shifted across the ceiling slowly at first, then more confidently, as if whatever was up there knew I was listening. One night, I sat up in bed, trying to catch a glimpse of movement in the dim moonlight filtering through the window. The ceiling above my bed bulged for a brief second, like something heavy was pressing against it from the other side. My heart skipped. I jumped out of bed and turned on the light. The ceiling was flat and untouched again. No marks, no cracks. But the air smelled different, stale, like dust and rot. I decided to confront the fear directly. On the 6th night, I placed a stepladder in the center of the room and waited until 2:11 a.m. when the tapping began. I climbed up and pressed my ear to the ceiling. At first, I heard nothing. Then suddenly 2 sharp knocks, as if something on the other side had heard me and responded. I recoiled so fast, I almost fell off the ladder. That was when I knew this wasn't about old pipes or rodents. There was something behind the ceiling, something aware, something waiting. The whispers got bolder. Now, they didn't just say my name, they mimicked my voice. I would hear myself, perfectly copied, whispering strange phrases like, "Let me out," or "Come closer." One night, as I drifted into sleep, I heard my own voice say, "Don't move." And I didn't. I was paralyzed, staring at the ceiling, knowing that whatever it was had somehow learned to speak through me. I tried telling a friend about it. He laughed at first, but when I sent him the recording, he went silent. He called me back minutes later and said, "That doesn't sound like you. It sounds like something pretending to be you." I asked him what he meant, but he refused to elaborate. He just told me to stop sleeping in that room. I tried. I moved to the couch, even the floor in the hallway, but no matter where I slept, I still heard the tapping, still heard the voice. It always knew where I was. Always started at 2:11 a.m. one night. Desperate to get some peace, I screamed at the ceiling to stop. Everything went dead silent. No tapping, no whispers, nothing. I felt victorious for a brief moment, till I heard the reply. My own voice, cold and flat, whispered from the ceiling. "You don't tell me what to do." I didn't sleep at all that night. I didn't turn off the lights. I stayed on the floor, knees to my chest, praying for the sun to rise. But the worst part came when I left the house for a weekend, hoping that maybe the distance would break whatever connection had been made. I stayed with a cousin, far from my home, and for the first night, it was blissfully quiet. No sounds, no voices. I slept deeply. But on the second night, I was jolted awake at exactly 2:11 a.m. The room was dark, and the ceiling was unfamiliar, but there it was. Tap, tap, tap. Then a whisper, soft and sweet, in my own voice. You can't run from me. I had hoped it would stop, that ignoring the noises would make them go away. But that night, something changed. I was lying in bed, too exhausted to fight sleep, when a faint creaking sound brought me back to full awareness. It was coming from above again, but this time it wasn't the tapping or scratching. It was slower, heavier, like weight shifting across wooden beams. I looked up, heart pounding, and saw a small crack in the ceiling forming right above my bed. The paint began to flake and fall in tiny pieces, drifting down like ashes. Then the ceiling bulged ever so slightly, and a thin fracture split down the middle. I couldn't breathe. I sat up slowly, never taking my eyes off that growing crack. As the gap widened, something behind it moved. At first I thought it might be a rodent or something normal, but what I saw through the crack defied all logic. An eye, not a normal human eye, but something larger, rounder, and filled with darkness that felt alive. The pupil dilated unnaturally, and it didn't blink. It just watched me unmoving, unblinking, silent. For minutes, I sat frozen, locked in a staring contest with something that should not have existed. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even look away. Eventually, the eye disappeared back into the ceiling, but the crack remained, etched there like a scar. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When daylight finally came, I called in sick to work and stared at the ceiling until my neck ached. I stood on a chair and tried to examine the crack more closely, but it had sealed itself. No opening, no trace, just smooth ceiling again. But the presence was still there. I could feel it, watching, waiting. That night, I slept in the living room, thinking it would help. It didn't. At exactly 2:11 a.m., the air in the room grew cold. Not a gentle chill, but a drop so sudden my breath came out in visible puffs. The hairs on my arms stood straight up, and I heard it movement. Slow, deliberate crawling sounds coming from the ceiling above me. I sat still, blanket clutched tight, watching as the center of the ceiling darkened. A stain bloomed outward like ink on paper, and in the middle of it, something pressed against the drywall from the other side. I thought maybe I was hallucinating. I rubbed my eyes, turned on the lamp, nothing there. The ceiling looked normal. But when I turned the light off again, the stain was back, pulsing like it was breathing. Then I saw them eyes. Not just one, several, all peering down at me from within the ceiling itself. They weren't blinking, they weren't moving, just watching. I grabbed my phone and started recording, but nothing showed up on the screen. It was just my ceiling, perfectly intact. I even took a video and sent it to a friend in a panic, asking if he could see anything strange. He replied, "What am I supposed to be looking at?" I told him about the eyes, about how they watched, without moving, about how they were completely still. His response chilled me more than the eyes ever could. He said, "You've mentioned stillness a lot. Maybe they're not still. Maybe they're just waiting." That single word stuck with me. Waiting for what? I didn't know. But the thought that whatever was up there wasn't just passively watching, but actively anticipating. Something was worse than anything else. I began sleeping in random parts of the house, even in the bathtub with the door locked, just to escape the overhead space. But still, at 2:11 a.m., I'd feel it. That invisible gaze pressing into me, always from above. The final straw was the night I woke up on my bedroom floor. Even though I had fallen asleep on the living room couch, I don't remember getting up, walking back to the bedroom, or laying down there. But at 2:11 a.m., I opened my eyes, and I was staring directly at the ceiling. The crack had returned, wider now, and from it, a pale, inhuman hand with too many knuckles slowly slid down. It didn't reach for me, it just hovered there like it wanted me to know it could reach me if it chose to. The hand retreated slowly, folding back into the crack. Then the ceiling sealed shut once more, leaving behind no trace. But I knew then that this wasn't some passing phenomenon. It had chosen me. It had revealed itself in pieces, waiting until I was fully aware, fully afraid. I had become a part of whatever lived up there. And now, no matter where I sleep, I feel that gaze just above me, just behind the ceiling. Watching, always watching. I had to know what was really happening in my room at night. The tapping, the whispers, the eyes, none of it could be explained, and it was driving me to the edge. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. Every shadow looked like a threat. So, I came up with an idea. I set up a camera, small and high resolution, pointed straight up at the ceiling above my bed. I positioned it carefully so that it would capture the entire area where the crack had formed before. I pressed record and left the room, determined to see what the camera would see when I wasn't in there. I stayed in the hallway, out of sight, eyes fixed on the live feed through my phone. At first, the room was still, quiet. The clock hit to 11 a.m., and the air seemed to change even through the screen. It got darker not from the lighting, but from something thicker, almost like the shadows themselves were moving. Then the camera feed glitched, just a little, a flicker. A line of static crawled across the screen. I held my breath. The ceiling began to ripple. That was the only way I can describe it, like water disturbed by a dropped stone. In the center of the ripple, the drywall warped and thinned, as if something was pushing from the other side. And then the ceiling slowly began to open, not break, not crumble. It peeled like layers of skin being pulled back carefully by invisible hands. The sight was nauseating. Something was crawling out of it. It was slow, deliberate, and terrifying. Limbs, thin and long, emerged one by one. It moved like it had too many joints, too many elbows and knees. The figure that dropped down was humanoid, but only in the vaguest sense. Its skin looked damp, almost shiny, like it had never seen daylight. It had no clear face, just smooth, pale flesh where features should have been. And yet, I felt its eyes. I knew it could see everything. It didn't walk, it didn't float. It crawled, silently, on all fours across the ceiling, defying gravity. My mouth went dry. I couldn't look away from the screen. It reached the spot right above the bed and stopped, as if listening for something. I realized in that moment that it was confused. It was expecting me to be there. It cocked its head to one side, and even without a face, I could tell it was thinking. It stayed there, upside down, completely still for what felt like an eternity. Then it did something I will never forget. It turned its head slowly, almost curiously, and looked directly into the camera. The feed glitched hard. Static filled the screen for a few seconds. When the picture returned, The thing was gone, vanished, but the room was not empty. A single word had been scratched into the ceiling, jagged and fresh. Closer. I ran into the room immediately, terrified of what I might find, but the ceiling was intact. No scratches, no marks. Just the dull, familiar ceiling I'd grown to hate. The camera was still recording, but the feed was frozen. I replayed the recording, frame by frame. When I got to the moment it looked into the camera, I paused. Its head was tilted just a bit too far, like it didn't understand what the lens was. And in that one frame only one eye saw something behind it. There was a second figure, pressed into the shadows of the ceiling. This one was different. Smaller, curled into a tight, unnatural pose like a spider hiding in a crack. Its face was clear, a human face. My face, staring out, smiling. I felt a cold sweat run down my spine. This wasn't just a haunting or a monster hiding in the walls. This was something deeper, something personal. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't stay in the house. I left, drove 4 hours without a destination, just trying to escape the growing sense of doom crawling beneath my skin. But even in the motel room I found miles away, I couldn't shake the feeling that it had followed me. At 2:11 a.m., I checked the motel ceiling. It was clean, normal, but I still felt it, the pressure, the stare, the unspoken promise that I hadn't gone far enough. Whatever that thing was, it knew me. It had learned from watching, and now that I'd seen it, now that I'd captured it, it wanted more. When I returned to my room the next morning, everything appeared untouched, like nothing had ever happened. The ceiling looked perfectly normal, smooth and white. No cracks, no marks, no sign of the grotesque thing I'd seen crawling out the night before. Even the air felt still and ordinary, as if the night had just been a vivid nightmare. But deep down I knew it wasn't. I had the footage, or at least I thought I did. I rushed to my laptop and inserted the camera's SD card with shaking hands, desperate to find proof of what I'd witnessed. The files loaded, but something was off. The folder was there, but every video file was named with random strings of numbers and letters, as if they'd been scrambled. I opened the first one, nothing but static. The second file opened to a black screen. I clicked through several more, but they were all either corrupted or blank. Finally, one file loaded. The video began with my empty bedroom. For a moment, I thought it was working properly, until the screen flickered and froze. The last frame showed the creature looking into the lens, its faceless head tilting as if it could see through the camera. I quickly tried to pause and take a screenshot, but before I could, the file shut itself down. I stared in disbelief. When I checked the folder again, that file was gone. Deleted, vanished from the SD card entirely. A chill spread through my body. It wasn't just a technical error. Something had tampered with the footage. Something didn't want me to have. Evidence. My instincts screamed that this wasn't over. Then I noticed something else. My camera was missing. I had left it plugged in, sitting perfectly still on my dresser. But it was gone. In its place, lying flat on the wooden surface, was a small folded piece of paper. I reached for it hesitantly and unfolded it with trembling fingers. The handwriting was jagged, uneven, written in what looked like black ink or dried blood. 3. Words were scribbled in the center of the paper. Nice try, friend. I dropped the note instantly, heart pounding. That message wasn't just creepy, it was personal. The thing in the ceiling had known what I was doing. It had watched me set up the camera. It had let me see it, And then it had taken the camera, as if to mock me. I wasn't just being haunted, I was being toyed with. I wasn't sure what was worse, that I had proof of something unexplainable, or that something intelligent and malicious was watching me closely enough to erase that proof, without leaving a trace. Desperate to recover anything, I checked my cloud backup. The camera had been set to automatically upload footage to a hidden private folder. I signed in, heart racing, and opened the folder. One file remained, just one. Its name wasn't scrambled. It was titled Look. I didn't remember naming anything that I hesitated for a long time before opening it, my mouse hovering over the play button as every warning in my brain screamed at me to stop. But I couldn't resist. I needed to know the video was less than a second long, just a single frame. But that one frame froze my entire body. The shot was of my room, lit only by moonlight. The ceiling was open in the center like before, but now the figure wasn't alone. Dozens of eyes stared down through the crack eyes of different shapes, colors, and sizes, all crammed together. In the center of the image, something was crouched on my bed. It had no face, just stretched skin, over where one should have been, but its head was turned toward the camera. Its long skeletal hand reached out as if trying to touch the lens, and then I saw it, my reflection in the window behind the creature. I was in the room when it was taken. I don't remember being there. I don't remember recording it, but the reflection showed me, standing in the corner of the room, watching silently. My body turned cold. Either I had been sleepwalking, or something had taken my place. Something wearing me like a mask. I shut the laptop and threw it across the room. I didn't want to see anymore, but the damage was done. The line between waking and dreaming, between the real and the impossible, had blurred beyond recognition. That night, when I finally tried to sleep, I left all the lights on, but at 2:11 a.m., they shut off one by one. First the lamp, then the hallway light, then the small night light in the corner. Darkness swallowed the room. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I just lay there, staring up at the ceiling that looked so clean, so untouched, until I heard it breathe. I thought I could avoid it. I thought maybe if I ignored the whispers, the cracks in the ceiling, and the way the shadows lingered too long at night, it would all go away. But then came the frame. That one corrupted video file. The thing had Miss Storm maybe intentionally left behind. It was only a single still image, buried deep in my cloud backup. The moment I opened it, I knew it wasn't just a technical glitch. The image was clear, sharp, intentional, and in the middle of that photo was the thing I feared the most. There it was, crouched on my bed in the dark, just inches from the camera. Its limbs were long, thin, and bent in unnatural ways, as if someone had folded a human body like paper. Its skin looked like wet, stretched leather, clinging tightly to every bone beneath. But it wasn't the body that horrified MIT, was the eyes. Wide open, bulging, locked directly onto the lens with a hunger. I could feel. There was no face, no mouth, no expression, just eyes. Eyes that didn't blink. Eyes that weren't human. I stared at them so long, I began to feel dizzy, like I was being pulled into the image itself, and its hand. Its bony, twitching fingers reached toward the lens like it knew I'd be watching, as if it was waiting for me to open this frame. The longer I looked, the more certain I became that the thing wasn't just looking through the camera. It was looking at me right now through the screen. I slammed my laptop shut and backed away, but the chill didn't leave me. The feeling, of being seen didn't fade. It grew, spread, like its attention had finally landed on me in full. That night, I tried to pretend it wasn't real. I told myself I'd been hallucinating from lack of sleep, that stress and obsession had tricked my mind. I left the house and stayed with a friend, hoping that distance might weaken whatever connection had formed. For a few hours, I convinced myself I was safe. But at exactly 2:11 a.m., my phone buzzed with a notification. One new file had appeared in my cloud folder. I opened it. It was another image, this time not of my room, but of the room I was in now. The guest bedroom at my friend's place. The picture was taken from the foot of the bed, showing me sleeping, curled under the blanket. But the photo had something else in it too. That same pale figure was crouched by my side, its hand gently resting on my shoulder. And once again, those eyes stared directly at the camera, or at me. I dropped the phone. I didn't even bother telling my friend. What could I say? That something from my ceiling had followed me here and was watching me sleep. I left in the middle of the night and drove home with no destination. It didn't matter where I went anymore. It wasn't tied to the house. It was tied to me. I tried everything to cleanse the space. Burned sage, called a priest. Even slept surrounded by mirrors, hoping that if it came again, I'd at least be able to see it. But all that did was make the room feel smaller, like the walls were closing in. And the reflection of those empty eyes multiplied around me until I had to smash the mirrors just to stop the feeling. Then came the whispers. They didn't come from the ceiling this time. They came from inside my head. Not thoughts, not memories, whispers, soft, close, constant. They repeated the same sentence over and over again, in a voice that mimicked mine. Don't look up. But of course, I did. The ceiling above my bed was no longer white. It was stained black in a perfect circle. Not paint, not mold, something else. A kind of rot that pulsed faintly, like it was alive. From the center of the stain, a thin crack formed, jagged and sharp like a lightning bolt. And then it opened. No sound, no dust, just a silent, seamless shift. Something hung upside down from the opening, staring down at me with those eyes. But this time, it wasn't waiting. This time, it dropped. I don't remember what happened after that. I woke up on the floor hours later, shaking, eyes bloodshot, nails dug into my own skin. But the camera was back placed neatly beside me. On the floor, it had a new file on it, 1 second long. I didn't dare open it. I didn't need to. I already knew what was on it. Now, every night, I hear it before I see it. The ceiling groans, the air chills, and always at 2:11 a.m., it begins to whisper in my own voice. Don't look up, and every night, I obey, because I know that if I ever look again, it won't just be watching, it'll be waiting.